Hello and welcome to Vienna, well, simulated Vienna, and check out that really big airplane waiting at gate 11F in Vienna. That's the new PMDG 777 over here in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Hello and welcome back to the channel. Welcome if you're new. My name is Dave. I do the live spy flights over on Twitch. I'm also doing live spy flights here on YouTube. And every now and then I like to come on to YouTube, not in the live stream, but recorded so I can do what I call a complete cold and dark flight. We've had this airplane for about a week or so now, and I've been flying it around, and these are all little buttons that I'm pushing to try and make my simulated flights go as well as can possibly be expected. Or as we like to say, you know, in flight simming, what could possibly go wrong, right? This isn't about the right way versus the wrong way. This is what I've found is the best way that works for me as somebody who spends a lot of time with flight simulator airplanes to make the flight successful in Flight Simulator. So hop aboard. We're going to take the Air France 777, the brand new 772-200ER from Vienna in Austria, and we are off to Paris in France. So this should be a nice Air France flight. We're over here at gate F11, and this is, as you probably saw as I was zipping on in, this is going to be basically sort of the drone camera. And one of the things that I use for my drone camera is an Xbox controller. So along with all the other flight simulator stuff, this is how it is that if I'm going to go Xboxing around and droning around the airplane, or droning on and on as I tend to do, this is one of the things that I will use just to make things a little easier in the cockpit. It's not connected to any of the aircraft controls, but again, this is a great way to be able to just go and, you know, fly your airplane, but go and do the drone cam. This is the outside view of the airplane, and this is the one with your mouse that you just basically get to go and loop-de-loop around the airplane and stuff like that. So let's go on in. I haven't done anything except one thing as I went in to make sure that my Hoppy ACARS ID and my SimBrief ID is already set up here in the electronic flight bag. So I went and I checked those. Other than that, when you start up, you're basically going to be right over here. This is what it looks like. The PMDG Universal Flight Tablet. Flight tablet? Okay, more coffee needed here. And it's got several cool tools, including the electronic flight bag, performance tools, ground operations, weight and balance. So what we're going to do is start stacking up a few things here in the iPad. And this is probably what the pilots are doing. The real world pilots do before they even go to the airplane. They go and load up the iPad with all the data and stuff that they're going to need for the flight. So the first thing I'm going to do is request data from SimBrief, and there it all is. So Vienna to Paris de Gaulle in a Boeing 777-200. And I do this, the name of the shows that I do over on Twitch and here on YouTube is The Spy Flight. We are in Foxtrot, Golf, Sierra Papa Yankee. The perfect tail number for a spy flight, right? Some of the things is once you do put in some of the data, like your SimBrief ID and a Hoppy ACARS, you could click the departure weather here, and there is the latest METAR, and it's just right there in such a convenient place. So that's going to be one of the first things that I'll go and do. Next thing that I'll do is you can see that we've also loaded in the flight here, and it's in, basically it's in the Navigraph, because I've got my Navigraph attached to this. And so now let's go over here into the charts, and we're going to go to the departure chart. And it's going to go get a bunch of things. We're going to go and start getting our flight plan. And if you forget where the flight plan is, this is also super duper convenient. All you do is click the little flight plan. Oh my gosh, there's the whole thing. So there's all of our fuel. There's our step climbs in the middle of the flight. We've also got the actual route of the flight too, which is really nice. There's the route. And I just, the whole flight plan is just right in there. So it's a really great way to be able to keep track of data. Now, the other thing that I do is I've got a little thing here that I call the flight strip. This is a text file, and if you look in the description below, I've copied and pasted the flight strip that I have right here into that, so you can copy and paste it into Notepad on your own computer and use it any way that you want. So it's just a simple copy paste out of the description. And it's a text file, so, you know, there's nothing fishy going on with that. But let's go ahead and start stacking up charts. So our charts here are, we're going to need a airport chart. Usually I like to go and I get parking stands first. So I'm going to click the little thumbtack there, And then I'm also going to get the airport. We're going to click the little thumbtack there. I don't think I clicked. There it is. It turned blue. Then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to grab the SID. And our departure, according to SimBrief, is going to be the Otgar to Charlie. So we got to go ahead, and usually it's in sort of, it's in a sort of alphabetical order, but you kind of have to look around to find it because it's not always in order. So let's see, Otgar to Charlie. Okay, keep going. And I probably will go right past it. I've been known to do that a few times. There's the Ospen departure, but we're looking to opt for Otgar. Okay, we're starting to get some other ones. Otgar. Hey, look at that. Otgar to Charlie. Okay, so we'll just go and stick a pin in that one too. Now, for a lot of these airports that have a gazillion departures, usually there is going to be a chart index. Some airports have them, some don't. That's just the way it is. Now, for the arrival, we're coming into Paris de Gaulle, and according to the flight plan, it's the Vetus 9 Juliet. So we're over here on stars. Let's look for Vetus 9 Juliet. One of the things that I like to do is I do like to go and grab all my charts before I start punching buttons in the airplane. So there's, look at that, Vetus 9 Juliet. This one I'm actually going to click on here. So we're going to stick a pin in it, of course, and then look over here. And we're going to come over at Vetus, and then we're probably going to go out at Lorny, because our arrival is 9 left. So that's on the north side of the airport. So there's the airport there. And instead of Vbec, my guess is it's Lorny. And this is Paris. And Paris has got to have some transitions in there too. So let's see. Are the Lorny transitions in here? They probably are over in approaches. And we're expecting runway 9 left. So let's look for, there's 8 left, 8 right. 9 left. There is the Lorny initial approach. So this is one of those airports where you don't just get the ILS chart, you get the approach to the ILS and go from there. So there is Lorny 7 Echo. And let's see. So this picks us up at Lorny, and then it's going to be vectors to the ILS. That's probably a good one today. ATC might give you one of the other Lorny arrivals. Also, notice that we also have nighttime approaches too. So there is a nighttime approach for Lorny. It's still daytime while I'm recording this, so we'll do the daytime. Then we'll get the ILS and localizer, stick a thumbtack in that, and then we'll go over and get the airport. And over on the airport, we're going to go and park on the north side. So let's go and get parking stands on Terminal 1. Yep, that's it. So Terminal 1. Now we've been sticking all these little thumbtacks in here. Now we're going to go over and click the pinned button. And now when you go to airports, so we have pinned parking stands in airport for Vienna and airports and parking stands that we need for Paris. There is our departure. And there's our departure. Let's also go ahead, and while we're doing this, and there are some there's some parts of Navigraph that will automatically populate your charts. I kind of like to get my own because it forces me to kind of look at them and see that, oh, we got an initial climb clearance of 5,000 feet. Sometimes when you get your clearance from ATC, they don't give you, climb initially 5,000 feet, expect flight level 270, 10 minutes after departure. They just usually say climb via the SID. That means they expect you to look at that and know that you have an initial climb clearance 5,000 feet and you don't want to go any higher. Otherwise, they yell at you. Not really, but they can be cross on occasion. So we're going to come in at Vetus, go to Lorny. Over here after Lorny, we've got vectors down there. We've got an ILS coming into the runway, and we've got all the charts that we need. So that takes care of all of those, and it's really, really nice to be able to just go and get all of your charts before. I also kind of review them in my head, so when I'm putting together the final flight plan in the flight management computer, I kind of remember that the transition is Lorny. I don't remember all the time, but most of the time I do. All right, and with that, we're kind of done with all of the preliminary information. Now, by now, ground crew and other people have already got the airplane powered up, so the pilots would be making their way to the airport, to the airplane. So let's come on down here and go to ground operations. And the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure the chocks are in place, and I'm going to request a ground power unit. I'm also going to request a jetway connection here. And it doesn't really flash at you very much, but if you go outside the airplane, you can kind of look around and see, the jetway's moving. And one of the things that PMDG did with this airplane is they've got the jetway connecting primarily to the 2L door. That means the second door from the front on the left side. And so usually in flight sim, it always goes for the 1L, but this is a wide body airplane. They usually board passengers in that 2L door there. So that's kind of what's going on. Now, it could be that the jetway isn't going to make it all the way out there. Yeah, you can see it didn't do that quite like we'd like, but that's good enough. That's fine. The passengers can Leviosa their way, across the little gap there. Now let's go to door management, and we'll click door management, and I'm going to open that 2L door. I've got a cabin view set up here over the left wing. So if we go and just kind of turn around and step out of that first class seat and kind of walk a little bit forward here, you can see, oh, look at that. There's the door that's open. Now, normally there'd be a jetway there, but our jetway doesn't make it all the way there. So we will use our imagination. And at that point in time, we've got ground power. We got everything that we need. So let's come on up here and turn on the plane. Everything else looks good. One of the last things that I'll do before hitting the on button is I'm just going to go ahead and move my throttles forward. I might move the speed brake handle a little bit. I'm going to make sure the gear lever is down. The parking brakes are off because chocks are in place. And I'm going to go ahead and just move my controls. Now, the real world pilots do this at another time in the flight. They don't usually do this about now. I do this at the beginning of the flight like this before I even turn stuff on, because if I've got a USB problem, some USB that failed to connect, I'm going to see it right here, and that's the nice thing. Okay, now all the yapping is done. Let's go and start pushing buttons. First thing we're going to do is turn on the battery. So the battery is up here at the top. Electrical is going to go on. Electrical goes on. Now over here, if you look and see, PMDG automatically has navigation lights already on for you. We're also going to turn on primary external power, and there's actually two power plugs. So we're going to get the secondary plug in there too, and then we'll kind of come up here. Let's arm the emergency exit lights and then guard it. We're also going to go ahead and turn on window heater, the ADARUs, the navigation system, the IFE, in-flight entertainment passenger seats, and then the cabin utility button there so they can turn on the coffee machine because we need it. I've got no smoking is already on, seatbelts are already on, and if you're flying on VATSIM, one of the things that PMDG has gone and set up as a default is your transponder is already set to TARA, T-A-R-A. So really right now, we would rather have this set to standby. So I'm going to just go ahead and click that over to standby, especially before I'm going to get onto VATSIM, because I don't want to pop up onto their scope until I, get logged into VATSIM, make sure I haven't spawned on top of another airplane, and then maybe we'll go ahead and do that. I'm not on VATSIM for this flight today, just so that we can kind of just have this time for you and me to fly the airplane together, see which buttons I'm pushing, and kind of go from that direction. Real world airplane pilots, one of the things that for every airplane they make sure that you check is the wipers. Make sure that the wipers are off. I guess it's, probably because maybe there's some rocks in there and you don't want to scratch the windshield, or you don't want to hit the on button and have the windshield wipers going crazy. Now, at this point, you probably see that we've turned the airplane on, but all of these screens are not on yet. Surprise! Yes, it takes a while before these screens go on. So one of the things is over here, I went and I did all of my charts now. Generally, I did my charts at the beginning, for this video, but generally I'll get the airplane powered up and then go and start stacking up all of my charts and stuff like that while the airplane powers up, because this 777 does take a little bit of time for all of the computers to go on. Oh, look at that, and it's starting to flash around. So the pilot gets to go reach for their coffee mug. enjoy a little bit of coffee. And the airplane has really good sounds. You can get some sound packs, I think, either not now, but eventually sound packs. I will say I think the sounds on this airplane are pretty good already. And then the first thing that we're going to come on down here and do is I'm going to go to the FMC, and it says enter your initial position. So that's first thing to do, right? Position in it. We are at Vienna. So that's LOWW. LOWW. We already know that we are at gate Foxtrot 11. F11. So F11. And the thing is it doesn't always know the gates, and if it says not in the database, that's okay. Just cancel that out and grab the GPS position. So really what you do is you take your GPS position, compare that with your gate or your airport. If they're close, I usually put the GPS position in the inertial position boxes there. And that's usually the first thing that I'll go and do. And then it goes and says, hey, there's all of your really groovy gate data. Now let's go to route. And I'm going to go and put the origin, LOWW, up here in the origin box. And then I'm going to go and hit route request. Now sometimes this works for me and sometimes it doesn't. This one says LOWW to LFPG and it's in red, which means it's not going to work for me. Let's go and do LFPG and see if that changes. LFPG. And now let's route request again and see, because this is something that hasn't worked for me. Okay, so that's in red. That means it's not going to work for me. It's the download, I've done something wrong. But it gives us an opportunity to do something kind of cool here. And it's a little bit tedious, but it's a good idea to be able to know how to do this with your airplane, because sometimes if you're in a big VATSIM event, you're going to get what's called an in-flight reroute. In other words, AT is going to call you and tell you, we're changing the route of your navigation, advise when ready to copy, which means you need to know how to put your route into the flight management computer. So we're going to go ahead and do that right now. We're in Air France, AFR, and my usual call number is 441. And at that point, now we'll go to the next page and we're going to go and put our route in. If you've got two monitors, this is a really, really great time to utilize your second monitor and have a PDF copy of your flight plan right here. If you don't have a secondary copy of that, what you could do is come over here and hit the flight plan over here, and then come on down here, and you can go, and there's your flight plan right there, and you can go and plug it in that way. So there's two different ways to do that. Usually if I'm doing the live stream, I'll just have the PDF over there because it's a little faster than changing the different views. But we're going to go ahead and do it this way. So our first waypoint is MEDIX, 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 and put that in the to side. Next waypoint after MEDIX is RENKA, RENKA, so direct to RENKA, 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 that goes in there. After RENKA, we're going to be on an airway, the L610. So L610 goes on the via side, L610. That goes over there, and after the L, we exit the L610 airway at MAMOR, M-A-M-O-R, M-A-M-O-R, M-A-M-O-R. And that goes over there. If you get one of these wrong, it won't work for you, by the way. So that kind of is a, you might think of that as spell check or something like that. Okay, so after MAMOR, we're going to do ASPAT, A-S-P-A-T. So A-S-P-A-T. I spell it out like that. It just helps me generally put it in correctly. After ASPAT, it's VIBOM, V-I-B-O-M. V-I-B-O-M, VIBOM. And then we're going to have to go to the next page. After VIBOM, it's BETEX, B-E-T-E-X, B-E-T-E-X. X, BETX. There we go. After BETX, it's IDOSA, I-D-O-S-A. I-D-O-S-A, IDOSA. After IDOSA, oh, we're going to be on another airway, the UN 857. UN 857. UN 857. So there's an airway. And UN 857 is taking us to Rapor, R-A-P-O-R. R-A-P-O-R. Sometimes spelling is not my best suit on these things. After Rapor, it's going to be UZ-157, UZ-157, UZ-157. That's an airway. And that takes us out to VEDUS, V-E-D-U-S, V-E-D-U-S, whoa, missed a few there, didn't I? V-E-D-U-S. Okay, there we go. There's flight plan. That's it. And at that point, the real pilots are going to go and verify it a second time, and then they verify it with each other, which is pretty cool. So anyway, that's what we've got. There's our flight plan. I'm going to activate it and execute it. Now we'll go to performance initialization, but before we do performance, we got to load the airplane. Now, if the download had worked well going into the flight simulator for me, one of the things that would have happened is it would have loaded the passengers and the fuel and the cargo automatically. This time it didn't do it, so we got to do it manually. And that's okay to do. Now, you can do ground service vehicles, ground operations, maintenance, a whole bunch of cool things. Let's just go ahead and put the fuel in, and that's off the flight plan, and that's your block fuel. So block fuel is up here, and there it is, block fuel 18160. So let's see, 18160 is, no, over here. I'm on the wrong flight management computer. Boy, am I glad I checked that out. Okay, let's see here. Let's see. Airplane is in pounds, I think. Yeah, this airplane is in pounds. I may have done my flight plan wrong. Pounds and kilos, that's a thing. And I'm kind of glad that this happened because it's easily fixable. So let's go over here to my original SimBrief flight plan. And you can see that my en-route fuel burn is listed in kilos. So let's go and edit the flight. I figured that this livery would have been the Air France would have been in kilos, but it's not. Individual liveries of airplanes can change those. But I'm going to switch this to pounds and regenerate the flight here. I'm also going to get rid of that flight plan. Now, the flight plan is essentially just going to be different. It's just going to recalculate fuel and zero fuel weight and everything else in another in another set of numbers here. So let's go and do current plan and slide that over there. Now I'm going to come over here and let's go back to this, request new data from SimBrief. And it's the same flight plan, only now our weight and balance will be better. You know, I got to wonder here. I wonder if the problem that it was red is because I did the flight plan in kilos, and maybe it's, let's do a little bit of online troubleshooting. Menu. Where's my index page? FMC index. Ident, we did that. Navigation data is groovy. Position in net is groovy. Let's go over here and let's just check the route request and see if it's still red. It's still red. Okay, so that's not what I did wrong. But you can see we can go back and check those things. All right, the route is still in, right? Yeah, the route's still in, so no problem there. We'll leave that on performance in it, and now we're going to come over here and put stuff in the plane. So total fuel, oh boy, is this different. So the total fuel here is 40,043 pounds. So 40,043. So that's going to be our total fuel. There we go, 40,043. Return. Payload. Our zero fuel weight is up here, and our zero fuel weight is 373,000 pounds, 721. So let's do 3,073.721. So that's just going to be 0.7. And let's put that into ZFW. And did you see the screen move a little bit, shake up and down? That was basically the airplane's now loaded. We're all ready to go. We don't have to do anything else. So this page is, we're essentially done with this page. Okay? So with all of that, let's come on up here. We're airplane's loaded. Let's flip on the APU now. In Europe, they flip on the APU about 10 minutes before push and start. And there is a thing that you can do over here in ground operations. And if you go to ground connections, you can request air conditioning unit. I have not tried that yet, but that is a way that you could have air conditioning being pumped into the airplane without the APU if you wanted to do that. But we are all essentially all loaded up here. And let's see, the APU should be starting up as well. We could probably hear it outside the plane. No, I can't hear it, but I can see a little bit of a heat plume out of the APU exhaust there. So we do have a little APU. Maybe I do hear it just a little bit. Maybe I do hear a little APU. Oh, yeah, there it's going. So APU is now coming up, and that's really nice. And now we can go ahead and let's do the rest of the performance initialization. Our cruise altitude today is flight level 400. So 40,000 feet. Our cost index today is 38. And if you wonder where I'm getting that from, so we actually have some step climbs in there, and we'll worry about those later. There's the cruise cost index right there, is 38. And I'm using the default LOWW style of charts. You can choose the different style of charts that you want over on SimBrief. I'm using just the default to make it easy. Reserves. The thing that I'm using right now for reserves is final reserve and alternate fuel. So that's all the fuel that we need to have 30 minutes of fuel, 15 minutes of fuel, so our two backup fuels, and the amount of fuel that it takes for us to get to our alternate. And that is what we should have in the tanks if we do a perfect flight, no deviations or anything, and land. We should have 12,340 pounds of fuel. So it's going to be 12.34. So 12.3 is our reserves. Zero fuel weight, we remember that from earlier, right? We already put it in, but if you can't remember it, one of the things you can do in the flight simulator is just click it. 373.7, sound familiar? Yeah, just pop that in there and that's good to go too. And there is all of that data. Now again, the airplane is all nicely loaded here. So, and in fact, the APU is up. And if you look over here, you can see the secondary power is now just available. It's not on. We're on primary power, but the APU is starting to supply a little bit of power to the airplane. So as we get closer to being ready to go, I'm going to go ahead. We didn't open the cargo doors. You don't need to. You can, and it looks pretty cool when you do that. I'm going to go ahead and close my 1L door. And so that door is closing. We're slowly getting ready to get out of here. While that door is closing, let's go to ground connections, and I'm going to go and pull back the jetway now. So the jetway, which never quite made it out to the airplane, we'll go and pull it back. Now my guess is, as you can see, that the airplane, it loaded us right here at this spot. We probably should have gone over to F13, but being able to position your airplanes in Flight Simulator, you can't put yourself in exactly the position that you're supposed to be. That's probably why our jetway didn't quite make it there. Okay, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and release the... no, I'm not going to release ground power. We're not done with the ground power quite yet. But back to doors, we're going to go ahead and arm the doors for departure. Doors are now armed for departure. And that is, you know, the slides and stuff. That way, if we have to open a door or something like that, and there's a slide to get out, we're all ready to go. Let's go ahead and the way that I learned to start up the hydraulics is reverse counterclockwise. So I believe you start with right electric auto, and then the center electrics, and then these three. I don't know if that's entirely true. That's the way I saw it on a YouTube video, and well, seeing as I'm on a YouTube video right now, that's not a very good endorsement, is it? Let's also turn on our fuel pumps right now. We are getting that close to being ready to go. Exit out of here. I'm going to Performance Tool now. We know that Vienna is departing off of runway 29. So runway 29, I'm going to import all the aircraft data from the aircraft, and that gives us our takeoff weight, our center of gravity. We want flaps to be and rating to be optimum. I'm going to import the weather. The altimeter is 29.94 inches of mercury, and I'm going to calculate. So now we got all sorts of information that we can plug into the airplane. First, I'm going to go and do my rating and my selected temperature. So we're going to do a D rate of -2 and 41 degrees. So thrust limits, -2 and 41 degrees. So we're going to trick the airplane to make it seem like it's 41 degrees instead of the real temperature. It makes it work a little. The engine doesn't work as hard, less wear and tear on the engine, less noise, less fuel, but we're going to use more of the runway when we derate, or flex if we were over in an Airbus. Our flaps are going to be 5. So we're all done with this page. We're going to go here and do flaps 5. CG, there's two ways you could do this. You could look it up here. Our center of gravity is 25.38 or 25.9 as you round it. Or you could just click the CG button. It says 25.4. So yeah, 25.4 is rounding, not 25.9. It would be 25.4. Okay, clearly the coffee is not kicked in yet. And so all that looks good. And you notice over here we don't have any data yet. I forgot to do departure and arrival. So let's do our departure here real fast. Runway 29 is our departure. We are doing the OTGAR to Charlie departure. So OTGAR to OTGA to Charlie. And execute that. Let's go ahead and plug in our arrival. So we know we're going to expect runway 9 left. 9 left. It's going to be the Vetus 9 Juliet. Vetus 9 Juliet, and there's a ton of these in Paris. So Vetus 9 Juliet. Now then, we've got to do a transition. And I remember it was the Lorny 7 Echo, right? I can't remember these things. Guess what? That's why I stack up my charts early in the game. Let's come over here to charts. And it was the Lorny 7 Echo. See? Lorny, I knew I stacked those up for a reason. And that's good to go too. Go to the legs. There might be one route discontinuity in there. And that's going to be after vectors after Lorny. There's VBUC and Lorny. So we're going to go ahead. Why don't we go ahead and close that right now? No, you know what? I am not going to do that. And here's why. So after Lorny, and we come in here and do this. So after Lorny, we come chug, 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 chug right down to Bunner, and then PG 501, and then we come over here, and then here is the runway. Is that really the Lorny 7 Echo did I get? Yeah, I guess so. So after Lorny, actually this route discontinuity we should have closed because that's after VBUC. Is that the star? Do I not know what I'm doing? I may not know what I'm doing here. After Vetus, XRAM, Inorni, Devum, and Lorny. Hey, that's got VBUC over there. Why does that have VBUC? I didn't say to do that transition, did I? Did I say to do that transition? I don't remember doing that. Let's see. So, arrivals. ILS 9 left. Vetus 9 Juliet. Yeah, 9 Juliet. So the Vetus, the 9 Juliet puts us out at VBUC, not Lorne. Oh, really? So 9 Juliet takes us down to VBUC. So we don't want the Lorne, we want another one. Okay. So let's go and do the right one. One of the reasons that I'm kind of leaving this in is not because we don't want Vetus. We want the 9 Hotel, 9 Juliet. Right, we want that one, but we want to change this. So 9 left. It's not this one, it's going to be Vetus. The reason I'm kind of leaving this in here right now is because it's a really good idea to look at these sorts of things. Well, I don't have a VBUC arrival. I don't see that one. The thing is if you're going to fly like Frankfurt Friday into Paris nights, figuring this out is really important. So there's the ILS right there. It looks like after VBUC, we don't actually do anything. We do, I don't see one, a transition in here. Is VBUC going to be over here for the other side? VBUC is over here for these other runways. Why did SimBrief give me that? That doesn't make sense. You see how sometimes that some things just don't make sense here in the world of flight sim? Okay, so my guess is we're going to change and we're not going to do this. Let's do the Vetus 9 Whiskey arrival. I think we were going to do the Whiskey to take us to Lorne. Let's try that. I think that's what we want. Let's try 9 Whiskey. Vetus 9 Whiskey. And that goes over there. And will that put me out at the right one? I think that one should do that. Lorne 9 Echo. Execute. These are the kinds of things that you're going to run into on occasion. So, and it's always a good thing to check, especially if you're going to be in one of those crazy VATSIM events. There it is, Lorne, Bunner, PG 501, and the runway. Boy, am I glad I checked that. And I'm going to leave that the vectors in there too, because we obviously have some vectors after Lorne or after that transition. SimBrief will give you wrong transitions like that. And instead of, trying to make myself look cool and stuff and edit it out to make it look like it's perfect, it's not always going to be perfect like that. So it's a good thing to check, especially if you're going to be on one of those VATSIM events. Doors are closed, seatbelts going on. We'll disconnect ground power. And with ground power disconnected, we are done over here. And let's go to ground operations. I am going to release the ground power. I'm going to come on down here, and parking brakes are going to go on. So parking brakes, toe brakes in, pull it, release your brakes. And that's good. And I can remove my chocks. And all of that looks good. We're clear on this panel. So I'm going to go over here to my electronic flight bag, and we're going to go home. I'm going to hit arrival, departure, just to make sure I got the latest altimeter setting, and that's going to be 1014 on the altimeter. Click it from inches of mercury to hectopascals, 1014. We do have an initial climb clearance of 5,000 feet. Click the top up here to go from auto to 1,000, and we'll go down and just do that in thousands. And now that looks good, init ref. Now you see we got our speeds for takeoff, 130, 133, 139, and I'm going to put 139 up here in this. And 139. Flight directors going on. Flight directors are going on. If we were on VATSIM, we would want to do some squawking right now. And we don't have a squawk code here, so if this is the spy flight, we should squawk 0007, and we're getting ready for push and start. This is when I would start to call in for ground for push and start. I'm now going to go to transponder, And that's going to get me a little, I'm going to start to appear on their screen, I believe. And now we're going to come over here and make this full page. And I'm going to start zooming this map in. Now, this map doesn't work as good as some of the other ones. But I got to tell you, when it does work, wow, is it nice to have this moving map like this. We've cleared all of our moorings here. We're pretty much ready to go. Passengers are in their seats. Let's go. I use Pushback Helper. GSX does a really good job, but GSX is a little cranky on my system right now. And that went and got that. So we're getting the tug. And this is all looking really good. While the tug's connecting, let's go and take a quick check of the airport and airport. So we're going to be going to runway 29. Wow, is this a convenient departure? So we'll push back, tail to the left, come on over here and go to Alpha 1 for takeoff. That's going to be nice and simple. Let's see, tug should be getting a little bit closer. Hi, tug. There it goes. This should be a really nice little sunset flight for us today as well. So we've got some nice clouds. It is a little bit windy here, so expect a little bit of wind. We'll check the windsock on our way out. Always a good idea. I mean, windsocks are like, you know, total VFR kinds of things, right? Always look at the windsock too, just to see, because it changes. And the tug is really taking its time going in. Almost there, and it usually kind of jumps a little bit when it's finally connected like that. So it's all jumped, it's all ready to go. I'm going to turn on the beacon. I'm going to go ahead and do seatbelts all the way off and all the way on. That's how I know to ring the bell back in the cabin, let them know we're going to start rolling the airplane around again. And let's go ahead and toe brakes going off. That's going to release the parking brake and reverse. Pilots should have adjusted their seat a little bit so that they can sit up straight. And one of the cool skills to have is, can you do a pushback from the passenger seat? And sometimes it's easy to do, sometimes it isn't. There is the little roadway, that's the crew line there. So now we can go ahead and I'm going to start a little bit of a left turn. Come on up here. And we're going to slide over here and go start. And this is a 777. These engines, you hit start, you hit fuel, and it takes care of the start for you. Real pilots are going to monitor it. Sim pilot, we can look outside and see how our pushback's going. Now, one of the things that's going on in Flight Sim 2024 is after you kind of cross your taxi line and stuff, sometimes the tug will just stop and disconnect and go away. I don't know what that's all about. But this is right on the line, so straight back a little bit and then stop. Engine starting, so we're going to do parking brakes, toe brakes all the way down, lift the handle, and we can release the tug, and we're done with Pushback Helper. Pushback Helper is free. You can get it at flightsim.to. It's called just that, Pushback Helper. It's a fast little pushback, and assuming that you're not crossing, you know, one of those magic taxi lines that just makes it automatically disconnect and go away, you can get yourself a nice little pushback like we just did there. And one of our very, very big GE engines on this airplane is starting up nicely. The airplane comes with Rolls-Royce, GE, and Pratt & Whitney engines. So your engines will be correct on this plane. And if we want to be like real pilots, we can come in here and look at this. Something that I totally forgot to do, and we should do while that engine's starting, is go to the checklist down here, and oxygen and flight, fuel cutoff. I'm going to click that and do checklist, override that item, and clear that. And this is our next flight deck door is closed. Mode control panel was set. Takeoff speeds are set. CDU. I did not set the trim. 4.5. So let's go ahead and start engine number 2. And we're going to get that one started first, and then we'll set our trim. There comes that, and then we'll come down here and 4.5 on the trim. So there's 4, 4.25, 4.5, right? 4.5 trim. So trim is now set. Taxi and takeoff briefing. Yeah, I didn't do a very good job on that one, and that checklist is done. Okay, totally forgot to do that. And the checklists really help you out. Plus, in this airplane, if you don't do the checklists, the airplane will hassle you about it. So you at least have to try and do a few of them in there. I think you have to do before takeoff and before landing checklist. Otherwise, it's going to be cranky. And there goes another engine. And if we wanted to monitor the rest of the engine, we would hit the engine button up here. There is an awful lot of stuff up in this little panel right here. That's how I got checklists. There is the engine, so that puts that lower panel back into engine mode. And we got 2 good starts on our engines. So up here we can go, and we're done with the APU. APU can go off. Everything else is on and automatic. The only thing that I haven't turned on is the center pumps. We don't have anything in the center tank. That's what you'll turn on for cross the pond. Everything else is looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and hit that checklist button again and do before taxi and see how we did. Anti-ice, don't think we need any today. Recall. Recall has nothing to do with an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. It is cancel recalls. So click cancel and recall. And that's going to go ahead and show you, the TCAS is still off. Everything else is in good shape though. So our recall is good. We haven't set the auto brake. The auto brake is right over here. We go to RTO. Flight controls. Now for flight controls, we're going to check those. We're going to go ahead and clear this checklist right now. But now we're going to go and I'll show you where flight controls are. And it's this thing over here. So go back to this groovy little panel that has so much and hit flight controls. And as we look down here, now we're going to go and check them. So let's go stick all the way forward. That's elevator forward, elevator back, and release. Make sure it comes to 0. Left aileron all the way up, and even the flaperons are going too. All the way to the right. And we could look out there and see, hey, look at that. There were those out there. And rudder all the way right. Rudder all the way left. Trim, stabilizer trim is 4.5. That looks good. That's correct too. And so now we've done that. And I'm going to go back over to engines. Up here, let's see, let's get ready for takeoff. So flaps are going to be 5. Flaps 1. Flaps 5. And those are going out too. And you'll even see the flaps slowly deploying out there. Takes a while. I mean, these do not actually move on a dime, but eventually they'll start going. Eventually they'll start going, right? Hey, look at that. They're starting to go. And if it looks like the screen is kind of wavy and stuff, that's the exhaust from that engine. That's a little heat out of the back of the engine. Let's go ahead and do taxi light. I usually do one more little cabin call here. Seatbelts all the way on and all the way off. Let the flight attendants know. We're going to actually start rolling this airplane around. Hands on the throttles. Parking brakes are off. Hands on the tiller, and out we go. You can see our leading edge slats are out, and out we go. Most Boeings, if you have your airplane all set up, you can do throttles up forward a little bit. And if they start beeping at you, if something beeps at you in a Boeing, that's going to tell you, you didn't do it right. So let's come out here. How about a right turn down to Lima? Now in a McDonnell Douglas, Betty will tell you, flaps are wrong, or trim isn't set, or auto brakes. So Betty will actually talk to you. This airplane just beeps at you, or Boeing airplanes do. And so out we go around here. And there's our next taxiway. And around we go there. Really an amazing airplane. And every now and then over on the live stream, I always like to mention that there is a really, really cool series of YouTube videos. They're really old. They were produced by the PBS station in, I think, Seattle, back in the 90s, and it's called 21st Century Jet. And it's about a 6-part series, and basically PBS got to go and do a 6-parter on let's go from concept to selling to building the 777 to its first delivery flight, its first flight, commercial flight. And it's a little old, but it's a good series if you want to see some behind the scenes stuff back in some of the older days of Boeing. And everything here is looking good. The flight directors are on. Let's go LNAV and VNAV. And the mode control panel is almost completely set. We do need to do runway heading off the runway. So we've got, we need to make this turn at Alpha 2. And there's our runway. I didn't set my runway heading. Go over that center line just a little bit, and then it's a sharper turn because it's a big old long airplane. If we were on VATSIM, I'd also be looking around a little bit more for other airplanes. Even though ATC might have cleared us to taxi, there might be another airplane out there. And just like the real pilots, we're kind of looking out the window to make sure there isn't another airplane that's ready to go that might be coming in. That ding-dong that you heard down there, that was the flight attendants telling us that the cabin is secured. I'm going to come down here, parking brakes on. Let's come over here, go to our charts. One last thing, departing off of runway 29, our heading is going to be 291. Probably should have set that before we started taxiing. So 291, there we go, 291. And there's one more checklist. So checklists, and that is the before takeoff checklist. That checklist is good, flaps are set. So we're going to go back to engines, and we're ready. And our big airplane is ready to go and fly. Let's get out of here. So ATC calls, says you're cleared to line up and wait on runway 29. So I'm going to hit strobe lights at about the time I turn off the parking brake. And parking brakes on this airplane, you lift the handle up to release the to put the parking brakes on. Toe brakes on your rudder pedals, or whatever you do for brakes on a keyboard or joystick, that's how you go about doing that. Last thing I like to do, come on over here, even if we're clear to go out on the runway, I'm just going to look up here and see if there isn't a set of lights coming straight at us. And then over here, we'll go again right over that center line just a little bit. And then a nice sharp turn. And probably I went a little bit too far over the center line. But that's pretty good and nicely lined up. Last thing, we're lined up here. I'm going to go TCAS. We're going to go to Terra. Now, chances are you should have already had it on Terra before you left the gate, because that's squawking mode Charlie on all taxiways, which is what you do differently in the world of VATSIM. Over here, I'm going to hit the SID button while we've got a chance. So our SID, we're going to take off. We got a sharp little turn to the right here to WW296. And there's our sharp little turn after we take off. So we take off 1,000 feet, make the turn. And everything else is looking good. I think it's takeoff time. So landing lights going on. Shall we get out of here? I usually will go and take my throttles and move them up to the first detent on the Airbus throttles, because that's what I have. I'm going to hit the clock. I'm going to hit auto throttle, because that's going to set our thrust. I'm still steering with the nose wheel tiller right now. Hands are on the throttles in case we're going to abort. 80 knots, hands off the tiller on the side stick. And I'm steering with rudder pedals. Hands off the throttle, we're flying. Rotate. V1 is hands off the throttle. You've got to fly at that point. Oh my gosh, couple of scenery hits. Positive climb, gear going up. There's 1,000 feet. Start the turn. There's our turn. Passengers getting a nice view. And oh my gosh, check out that scenery. Wow. That looks really good. So if we were departing right now out of Vienna, that's what it would look like. There's 3,000 feet. ATC has probably got us doing several, frequency changes. And I increased our altitude just a little bit here, because they'll tell us to change altitudes. And there we are coming over there, keeping my flight directors centered. And flaps 1. Flaps are 1. Start to roll out the turn. Flaps going up. Flaps are up. The airplane does fly really, really nicely. And I'm trying to center my flight directors here. And we got a little bit of a turn coming up here. There's our turn. I was anticipating it. I'm a little steep in my climb. And roll this turn back out. I'm a little steep. There we go. That's not so bad. Now, by this time, if we're on a full big old VATSIM event, oh my gosh, are we going to be running all around and doing stuff. So let's get the autopilot on. AP's on. I usually try and center my flight directors as best I can before I hit the autopilot button. And the reason I go to and do the autopilot a little bit sooner than the real pilots would, because real pilots are going to fly the plane. But I don't have anybody in the cockpit to handle the radios. And if this were a VATSIM event out of Vienna, we'd be busy changing frequencies, going here, going there. It would be really kind of crazy. So we'll just go ahead and get the autopilot going a little bit sooner rather than later. We do have a couple of step climbs. So our first altitude is going to be flight level 340. So I'm going to just dial in flight level 340 right there. And the climb looks really good. Flaps are up, landing gear is up, auto brakes are off. But we do have a checklist. So checklist. And it says landing gear and flaps, and that checklist is now complete. So not so bad. I'll go back to engines for now. Now there's still a whole lot of little things that I didn't set up that we usually set up before the gate and stuff, but wanted to show you some differences here. So here's the range button on our map. I just clicked it to 20 miles. Now I'm going to hit airports and data. And you can see that there's a big change. Now all of a sudden you're going to see data for the waypoints and when we're going to get there. The other button I'm going to hit is traffic. And when you hit, now when you have traffic, you see how we have range rings around there for traffic? Oh, look at that. It automatically knew the transition altitude. So let's hit the standard button there. And I've got it set to just change the altimeters on the co-pilot, pilot, and the backup. It's just, we're so busy in some VATSIM events. Okay, a nice departure. I'm going to go ahead and keep my heading bug straight up in case the autopilot fails. Oh, look at that, 10,000 feet. Landing lights off. Nose light goes off, and I'm going to ring the bell back in the cabin. You do a 10,000 foot cabin call for the flight attendants. Let them know that we passed 10,000 feet. And so far, so good. Our climb is going good. We're going to go to our first altitude, which is 340, 4,000 at Renka. And now I'm going to go ahead and let's go and make this map a little bit bigger. And that's a really nice map to have. One of the cool parts about this is if you make it big enough so it starts to get stuff off, now you see the green lines around there. Those are your air traffic control zones. Those are the areas where you're going to be changed from one center to another. And that's kind of a nice little reminder. This is, oh, we're about ready to leave Wien radar and go into probably München, I'm guessing. Perhaps. I'm not sure. But anyway, I think München is next. And let's see, for here, we're done with this page. I'm going to just go over here and go to VNAV. This is Econ Climb. Showed the transition level. And we would have checked all these things before. Again, not the right way versus the wrong way. This is just what works for me in this airplane as we're slowly getting to know the airplane and to do all the little things you need to do. And I kind of have found as a flight simulator pilot, it's really kind of cool if you can get the airplane off the ground, get to cruise, land, and not have pixels scattered all over the runway. And from there, take a look at, build up from doing a basic flight to building, to being able to do all the things that the real pilots are going to be able to do. That just makes it a little bit more fun. Now, the real pilots, they don't get to do it that way. They have to know their stuff from day one, They have to really be ready to hit the ground running and do everything step 1, 2, 3. We're flight simulator pilots. We're a little bit differently. Yeah, I want to do it as good as the real pilots do, but it's a flight simulator, so I kind of want to have a little bit of success to start off and build on that. It makes it a little bit more fun. Just passing, coming up on 20,000 feet. This is the point where, unless there's a bunch of turbulence or something, I'm going to ring the bell one more time. And ringing the bell one more time basically says flight attendants can get up and start preparing the galley for all of that. Now, I believe down here there is there's the flight deck door. There is a cabin call down here. I think it's on cabin intercom. Yeah, there's an all call button here. And that's a all call for everybody. I think that's how you another way you can ring the bell and stuff. And then you would end the call after that. So that's another way to ring bells and stuff if you want to do that. Passing 22,000 feet. Everything's looking good there. Again, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and I'm going to dial up the heading to match our heading up here in case the autopilot fails or all of a sudden ATC says, take evasive action, there's a flying saucer, or whatever. It just says this is the direction that I wanted to be flying, and that really helps out a little bit, especially when things don't go well. So we're in our climb. Everything's pretty good there. We've done our checklists. We've got the elapsed timer over here, and that's going to help us. The electronic flight bag is showing our progress going out. Speaking of progress, if we hit the progress button, we can see that we're 570 miles from Paris, France. And at the time that I'm recording this, the airplane clock says it is 1746 Zulu. This says we're going to be landing estimated 1911 Zulu. And we'll have 20,000 kilos of fuel, pounds, this is in pounds, 20,000 pounds of fuel when we land. And 567 miles to go. Don't worry, we're going to do what we usually do on these cold and dark flights, and as we get a little bit closer to cruise, I hit stop on the recorder, you hit stop on the player if you're flying along with me, and then when we get to about 100 miles from top of descent, we start the video all over again, and you can keep flying along. That way you don't have to sit there for the bulk of cruise listening to really, really bad jokes. 26,000 feet, around 25,000 feet, I'm going to go ahead and do seatbelts to armed. And I believe that's gonna go ahead and automatically turn off seatbelts at a certain point. Yeah, you can see no smoking is on, but seatbelts are off. But if there's turbulence or something like that, the airplane is supposed to automatically turn them on for you. So we don't have to worry about it. And everything else is good. If we were on the radio, we would be on 122.8, for VATSIM, but we're not doing that. Now on my airplane, on some airplanes, you actually have to hit the mic button and the VHF button to hear it. On my setup, you don't have to do that. But sometimes you have to have those to be able to talk on VATSIM. And here comes another turn, so let's make the map a little bit bigger. And again, we're going to go and dial this over to match our heading, passing 28,000 feet. We do have a step climb, and at Renka. Oh, that's flight level 400. That's we're direct to Renka, so flight level 400 is our step climb. So I'm going to put 40,000 feet in there for now. And our climb goes well. Now, let's go and set some stuff up for the arrival. I know it's a little early, but let's go and get a few things going here. And you remember where we did checklists? Well, there's another cool button over here. There's another cool button on this. Now, all these work, by the way. They're pretty cool. But let's hit the COM button now. And come on down here and look at this. Ooh, this is interesting. So this has changed. Let's hit the click ATC. And what do we have? This is CPDLC stuff. So if we were on VATSIM, we could do that. That's not the one I wanted. Let's look at Flight Manager. Look at this. See where it says ATIS request? This is what we want. We're going to click that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go to LFPG and type it in here, but click it over here. And what we want is, what do we want our ATIS source to be? VATSIM, IVAO, or PMDG. PMDG basically just gets you the basic METAR. And I want it to automatically update. So PMDG and automatic updates. If we were on VATSIM, obviously do it that way. And now I'm going to hit send. It says it's sending, and it is sent. And now we're good with that particular page. And now I'm going to exit out of this. And as we're flying along, when a new METAR is it comes out, or if a new ATIS on one of the networks comes out, you'll hear the ding dong sound, and this new messages tab will light up, and your weather information will be right in there, which is really awesome. VNAV. We are doing pretty good on climb mode. Our top of climb is going to be in 40 miles. We are now 36 miles, 537 miles to Paris de Gaulle. The airplane itself is really nicely done. The cockpit is very well done. I hear a bell. What's that? New messages. Let's click new messages. LFPG information Tango. Zulu surface wind 01011 degrees. Visibility is great. Clouds few at 4,700 feet. Temperature is 14 degrees. Dew point's 3. The altimeter is 1017. Generated by PMDG using NOAA data. End of information. How about that? Two ways to get rid of this. You can hit the cancel button there, or you could cancel up in front of you. And that's good. So now we know that we're getting some data going in. And all that's looking really good. The airplane continues to climb. We are, looks like, what, about 30 miles from top of climb. So as we go cruising along here, you see where it says a little green dot and TC. That says top of climb. There is another one that's going to appear down the road, and that's TD, top of descent. Generally on these cold and dark videos, what I like to do, as I said earlier, is I'm going to stop the recorder and you stop the player. And then if you're flying along with me, what you would do was, when you get within about 100 miles of top of descent. So let's go over here, and there is the 160-mile range ring. So there's 80 miles. That's got to be right around 100 miles there, right? So when the top of descent is between, you know, basically halfway between the top and 80, that's when you would start your player again, because that's when I'm going to start the recorder, and that way we get to continue flying along together, and you can see all of the little buttons that are being pressed in here. In the meantime, we can kind of come over here and exit out here. Don't forget there is a step there. Don't forget to step down. That kind of makes the passengers a little nervous. We'll stop over here, top off our coffee cup, come on back here, and we got a nice little first class cabin here. They even put, you know, you can even put airline logos in your liveries. We'll just walk through the curtains. The curtains, by the way, open and close automatically, I think, with the seatbelt sign. You can see we've got a nice little flight attendant panel up here. I don't think it does anything, but it's a nicely done flight attendant panel. And if I'm ever lucky enough to be in an airplane, there is seat 7A. I usually try and get, unless it's first class, which there's no way I could afford first class, I like to go and see if I can't get seat 10A. Usually it's that's an economy plus seat, and that usually gets me a nice view of the engine and the wing, and I can just kind of sit back and enjoy the ride. So continue your climb, enjoy. If you're just watching the video, it continues. You don't have to do anything. If you're flying along, hit pause when you're 100 miles from top of descent. I will see you back in the friendly sim skies. And there we go. 100 nautical miles to top of descent. Welcome back. As you can see, the airplane is flying very, very well. We got the sun kind of right in our face right now. Hello. If you're flying along with me, I hope you had a really nice cruise. It really was nice. The clouds have been getting a little bit thicker. And if you set up the messages for ATIS, did you get an updated ATIS like I did? So here's the latest. Looks like surface winds are 020 at 9 knots. So the runways we're expecting are pretty good. Visibility is good. Temperature's 14. The altimeter 1017. That's going to probably be our arrival. Let's go ahead and set that right now. 1017. Now, even though we're currently in standard altimeter for cruise, the thing that I really like about Boeing is you can preset your altimeter setting. Really like to do that. While we're at it, let's come on over here to charts. We know which runway we're expecting, so over on the approach for 9 left, let's take a quick look down here and look in the lower left-hand corner, and for an ILS, the decision height or the barrow altitude is 578 feet. So over here on minimums, let's do 578, and you do that by you're going to dial the number up here, and you're going to look right below the artificial horizon. So let's go ahead and dial that in there. And 578, right? Now it's going kind of slow right now. You could just hold it. If you wanted to go faster, you could click and drag it. And if you click and drag, that's going to increase it by basically 10. And I'm going to look at it again. Yep, 578. So there's 560. There's 568. 575, 6, 7, 8. And they're real small little numbers there. So one of the things I'll do is after I set the altimeter, preset the altimeter and the barrow, I'll just go and zoom in and just make sure. I've also got the map a little bit bigger here on 160 miles. I'm also going to bring it down to about 80 miles for the arrival here. So we got that set up. That's really nice. And there's the ILS over here, the star. So at some point in time, ATC may call and say, Air France 441, descent on the Vetus 9 Juliet or the 9 Whiskey arrival, Lorne transition. And they might even also give us the Lorne 7 Echo transition or one of the night time transitions. So if that's the case, I'm going to come over here and just have a look really, really fast and come on in here and see. So there's Lorne 7 Echo, and it says, okay, for jetliners between 1,000, 15,000 and 10,000, over on the actual arrival. Over here at Lorne, it says, in this case, flight level 130 and flight level 70. And this one said, got to remind myself, short-term memory, you know. So this one was 11,000. Let's see. This was the initial approaches here. So we just have a general idea of what it's going to be. Let's go ahead and at Lorne, let's plan on being at 11,000 feet and a maximum of 300 knots. Well, all of that's going to probably be in our flight management computer, and real pilots are going to look at every line of the flight plan. But I'm going to just come over here and I'm going to dial in 11,000 feet. I'm also going to make sure that my heading bug is straight up too. And there we go. So that looks pretty good. We're kind of set up for our arrival at this point. And you might have noticed, you know, I am cutting some corners here in this. Oh, look at that. We got a very, very nice sunburst there, light burst there, camera lens burst. J.J. Abrams, the director, is very pleased that we have a camera lens flare there. Again, this is not about the right way versus the wrong way in a real world jet. This is what works in the flight simulator, and in particular, the way that I do things are the ways to do things if you're going to be flying on VATSIM. And the thing is VATSIM's getting pretty realistic. I mean, if you're going to do Paris by nights and Frankfurt Friday on a Friday together, if you're going to do Vectors to Copenhagen on Monday, these established VATSIM events that are super crowded with holds and everything, you're going to be a busy camper. The thing is these cockpits are made for not one, but two pilots. There's two people up here. There's one person. My job is to fly the airplane. That's it. Maybe take a sip of coffee every now and then. The other person handles everything else, like tuning the radios, like talking on the radio. That's why it is that I do cut a few corners here. Plus, it's flight simulator. Now, yes, as a real-world private pilot, there's a big part of me that wants to do things right down the lines, as by the book as I possibly can. But it's not always possible in a big VATSIM event or something like that. So if you're wondering why it is that I kind of cut the corners and stuff every now and then, that's kind of the reason why. That doesn't mean that I don't want to learn how to do more and more and more. And that's one of the cool things about flight simulation, is we're always learning more, always learning to do it a little bit better, always learning what the real pilots are going to be doing in the sim cockpit to be as close to real life as we possibly can. So all of this is looking good. We've got our latest weather data in here. I'm going to go ahead and cancel that in case we get another one that's going to pop up there. We're 50 miles from top of descent. And guess what we've got? We've got another checklist. So I'm going to hit the checklist button there. And this is the descent checklist. So the first thing we're going to do is cancel and recall. And if we go and zoom in a little bit more, you can see I've got no smoking on right now, but cancel and recall. And there we go. We have no messages from the airplane that says, hey, pilot, take care of this problem here. So I'm going to check that off. I didn't have any notes for this, so that's good too. Auto brakes. So there's several ways to determine auto brakes. The cut the corner way, the way that I do that is I'm just going to go, if we got a big old long runway, auto brakes 2, auto brakes 3 for a shorter runway, or if it's a crowded VATSIM event and we've got a short amount of time on the runway before the plane behind us is coming in. Now, the way to not do it in the cut the corner department is to go to the performance tool and do en route landing. This is a cool little tool in here, so let's go ahead And the runway that we're expecting is 9 left. So I'm going to go and do 9 left. There's 9 left. I'm going to import my airplane details. And I'm going to go with reverser. I'm going to say my reversers are all operative. All operating. Life is good. Auto brakes. Auto brakes 3. Non-normal conditions. Anti-skid in-up, engine shutdown, flaps or slats, all sorts. There's no non-normals. And I'm going to add an extra 5 knots. Now I'm going to import the weather. There's our weather and calculate. And you can see over here, it says that our weight should be 393,000 pounds. That's airplane, passengers, cargo, and fuel. Required landing distance is going to be 6,100 feet. Available landing distance is 8,898 feet, and it even draws a cute little line there that says, oh, look at that, we're going to be able to exit right there. So that gives us a visual idea of what to expect. This is a really cool tool. Now, you probably see along the top there was the takeoff, landing dispatch, and landing en route. You're supposed to, the real pilots are supposed to complete this one before you take off. Before you depart, you're supposed to run that check to make sure that you're going to be of the appropriate weight to land and that you can land on that runway. So that's why they've got 2 of these here. So if we really wanted to jump down a few real-world rabbit holes, we would have done that probably even before we pushed back from the gate. So you would have done that to check to make sure, okay, we're coming into Paris de Gaulle, we're expecting this at our present weight with the present weather. Can we land on runway 09 left and be okay? And that's the chart, right? That's the page that tells you, yep, everything's groovy, no problem there. Although I don't think that groovy is still a term that they would use. Coming on in over here, so we're looking pretty good. Let's go. I usually like to keep it on this chart here, and as we get a little bit closer, I start to zoom it in a little bit. Not so much right now, we're fine. Uh-oh, top of descent looks like it's on the 20-mile range ring here. So there's our 20-mile range ring. Look at that, around 21 miles. So anyway, auto brakes are now set. Landing data, VREF. Init ref. And you can do flaps 20, flaps 25, flaps 30. In a Boeing, I'm going to go with flaps 30. In an Airbus, I'm usually doing flaps 3. On the A319 and 21 these days. Bigger airplanes, I'll go full flaps. And I'm going to put that into flaps and speed. So landing data is set. Approach briefing. Well, I think we pretty much did the briefing, so there we go. I'm going to go back over to the engine page. And everything's looking good to go back here. Let's see. Usually in the past, I would go and I would... when I did the auto brakes, I would always arm the speed brakes. I'd try and do those 2 things together. Thing is when you have to use the speed brakes on the descent, if you've pre-armed them, you're going to have to arm them again. So that's one of the things that I've kind of changed. I now arm my speed brakes when the gear goes down. That's probably a little bit too late, but again, that's how I remember how to do certain things, and I kind of group some tasks together just so it is that I'm not going to forget. And there is our really, really big Boeing 777. One of the things to do with this airplane, if you get a chance, is to go into drone camera and do a walk around the airplane. With the drone camera set to go very, very, very slow. The details that they have put in this airplane as you get up really close to the landing gear, to the engines, to the static ports and the pitot tubes is really, really quite amazing. And there's some other nice little details too. Over on the spy flight, we come on over here. Forgot to do this before takeoff. Come over here. 1, 2, 3. Yes, you can click the pen. You can click the pens there, and that's sort of our PMDG ASMR good luck ritual there. Click the pen 3 times, and hopefully that means we will be able to land without having pixels scattered all over the runway. Come on around over here. This is looking pretty good there. And there's really nothing else that we are going to do at the moment except kind of be patient. One thing that you could do is come over here and change traffic to, instead of above or neutral or normal, I'm going to go now to below. And this is basically going to be traffic, and we're going to look at, ahead and below to see what's going on. And as you can see, we've started our descent. So our descent is good. This is the descent deviation. How high or low are we? Right now we are about 20, 30 feet low below that. And generally on most descents, it's going to keep you pretty close on this airplane. Some descents, or if ATC doesn't give you a descent in a timely manner and you're past top of descent, that's when you might need some speed brakes to pop out to slow yourself down, because, airplanes, you can either go down or you can go slow. Kind of can't do both of them at the same time. You can, that's why we have speed brakes, but it becomes a little bit more dicey there. And let's see, let's come on up here. Uh-oh, look at this. There's something new here. It says no smoking, auto brakes 3, and calm. What's that? Let's go hit the calm button. So there's calm. Look at this. We have a new message. And our new message is now it is Paris Information Victor. Surface winds 360 at 8. Visibility is good. Temperature's 13. Altimeter is 1017. So the wind has shifted a little bit, but we can still use runway 9. Should be just fine for our arrival. And now let's go, and we're going to start pushing this map in just a little bit. Passing 36,000 feet. Life is good over here. Let's go ahead and cancel that. We're done over that with that one. Let's see. If we look over on our charts and look over on the approach, you'll see that the transition here is, there's Lorne holding. Nope, we need to look at the ILS, not this one. And zoom in just a little bit. Look up here. Transition altitude, that's for airplanes departing, is 5,000 feet. Transition level going down is by ATC. They will change that. If there's nothing there and I'm just flying along or something, I'm just going to add 1,000 feet to that. And so we'll call it 6,000 feet. And if we come on in here to VNAV, it should give us runway econ, VDIS. Maybe it's on the forecast page. Yeah, flight level 60. Let's request forecast winds. Yep, we could do four. Fact is, I probably should have done that before. So we'll go in and request our forecast winds for our descent. But our flight level 60 is probably good. The request has been sent. Descent forecast uplink is ready. Let's load them. And it takes a little bit of time. Invalid forecast uplink, so we can't use it after all. We could go, I think that there's a place in the flight plan where we could go and look at that if we wanted to. Descent's still going pretty good. And the clouds are nice and fluffy outside. The cabin back here is looking pretty good. Yeah, that looks like economy seating to me. And let's go ahead, and as usual, I'm going to go and move my heading bug straight up. Uh-oh, what's this? Oh, auto brakes and no smoking. I saw the extra one. I thought, oh, did we get another weather? No, not quite. And this is looking good. And that's looking okay over there. Let's go back over to the star. Get that one. There's VDIS, there's Lorne, and we'll just click this up here. Always a good time, especially if you're going to be in a big VATSIM event. Just a quick review of final reserve and alternate, 12,340 pounds. And if we come on over here to progress, it says 20.4. This number is 12.3. We've got more than enough fuel to get into Paris, do a couple of go-arounds if we have to, and still go and do our final reserve and fly to our alternate. So we got plenty of fuel. Another number you should have taken a look at that I forgot to is minimum takeoff fuel. Before you go rolling down the runway at Mach 10, you need to check this number, check your fuel, make sure your minimum takeoff fuel is 36.4 or whatever it is on your airplane. Make sure that you got enough fuel to do the flight before you shove those throttles all the way forward. Otherwise, you might be a little bit surprised in not a good way. And our descent is going really, really good. You can see that we have virtually no deviation on our descent at all. There's Vetus. Hey, look at that. There's Lorne up there. So our arrival is looking really pretty good. Again, you know, like I said earlier, one of the things that I found is SimBrief does a great job of putting your flight plan together. But it will give you some things that sometimes don't make sense. Another one is Atlanta. So over in Atlanta, I don't know if you know that there are they've got some specific rules for runways and all for departure runways. And one of the things that I could show you is I actually have this saved as a picture. And this is from the charts for the Atlanta departures. And basically what you do is when you look at your flight plan and it puts you, let's say it puts you on the Jack departure here. So over on the Jack departure, and let's say that they're departing 27 right, 26 left. SimBrief, most of the time, at least for me, and maybe I'm doing something wrong, most of the time for me, it's going to give me the opposite of the departure. So if they're taking off on 26 left or 27 right, it will give me the opposite of the one that we're supposed to use. So if we're going to do the Jack departure, that's an east transition, and that means you're supposed to use 27 right. And like I said, it's always the opposite for me. Maybe I did something wrong, but anyway. So you probably saw, like I said, I could have edited the video and said, oh yes, it was a perfect flight plan. But you really ought to take the time and go through your flight plan and just have a look and see, is everything right? Particularly if you're going to fly in VATSIM Frankfurt Friday, if you're going to do Friday night ops into Chicago O'Hare on a Friday night when everybody's going to be flying. That way it's one less thing that you're going to have to worry about. Our descent is still going pretty good. We're going to go to 11,000 feet. And so 11,000 feet is what I think we were going to go and do at Lorne. So far, so good. Over on the progress page, we're going to be landing. We got 130 miles to Paris, landing at 1912 Zulu. It is 1844 Zulu. So you can kind of get a general idea of when we're going to be landing. We're approaching 25,000 feet right now. So 25,000 feet. And I'll tell you, I mean, one of the things that I'm really impressed with is I remember when the 757 first came, the 777 first came out. I had this book about it, and it had a lot of pictures about the airplane and in the airplane. And one of them was a close-up picture of the graphics for this display right here. And I was just, wow, look at that. That was amazing for its day. And I thought, we're never going to see anything like this in flight sim, and that's what it looks like. I mean, the flight directors, the descent, the speed tape, it really is amazing to see that. 25,000 feet, unless it's turbulent up higher, is when I'll usually go and just do seatbelts to on. That way it's sort of like, nope, positive, we don't care what the airplane says. It's time for seatbelts to be on. Passengers in their seats. So we got that going on. I'm going to go ahead and bring the map into 40 miles here. And that looks good too. And there is Zerum. So and there we are. We came in at Vetus. We're going to go to Zerum, Inori, Devon, and Lorne. So we're on the arrival, and all is right with the world. We're going to stop at 11,000 feet at Lorne, and then do the transition and come into land. I'm going to just hit the checklist button and see what's next. The next checklist item is the approach checklist, and that is for altimeters. We don't need to worry about that yet. That's at 6,000 feet. The real pilots, one of the things that might be a good idea is, let's see, gear. Let's hit the gear button. And this is going to go and give us temperature and pressure, I think. So brake temperatures are nice and cool, and the tires are all pumped up. So that's a good thing to check, probably before you take off. You could also do the electricals, the hydraulic, fuel, air conditioning. You can check all of those. And then I usually do that. You can also change things. So the left inboard, you can change that around from the nav map, I think is what we've got. You can also do that with the right bound. We can hit the status button, and the status button says the hydraulic systems are good and there's pressure. The APU is off and we have oxygen. So passengers are breathing and not complaining. I usually leave it on the engine page on this airplane. The descent is still going pretty good. As far as flight controls on this airplane, it's a fly-by-wire airplane. It's not quite like an Airbus, but I've found with this airplane that small control movements with the stick are best. You really can start rocking that stick around and moving it around. And generally, I really am trying to go much smaller movements on my little side stick. I do use the Airbus side stick, even on a Boeing, just because I don't have a yoke, and besides, a yoke would be right in the middle of my desk here. And since I record videos and live stream, that would just get in the way. So I'm still like the side stick, even for flying a Boeing. It doesn't destroy the immersion too much, so that's kind of a nice deal. And we're about ready to make the turn at Zerum, passing 19,000 feet. Now's about the time I'm going to go and do a little bell for the flight attendants. Around 18 to 20,000 feet is where I'll basically do a notification. So departing 18 to 20,000 feet, flight attendants, you can get up and start doing things in the cabin. 18 to 20,000, it's sort of like flight attendants, start getting the cabin all cleaned up, be ready, because we're getting close to 10,000 feet and seats for landing. Here comes our next turn, and direct to Lorne. After Lorne, so we're making this turn here, we'll be on the Lorne 7 Echo. And one of the things we're going to have is vectors. 267 degrees. So 267 after Bunner that we've got to be ready for. But we still got a little bit more to go. We do have a slowdown. Maximum speed is 250 knots at Devon. Right now, we're already at 250 knots. There must have been a 280 up here, so it slowed us to 280 already, to 250 already. That was probably a mistake that I had in my flight plan. But that's pretty good. So less than 100 miles away from the airport. Nothing really to do here with VNav at the moment, so I'm going to go over here to my init ref page at this point. start reminding myself of the speed, 129 knots. I usually add about 5 to 10 knots depending upon the wind and a Boeing. So we're going to call it 135 to land is what I'll dial into the airspeed. But right now, you know, if we were on VATSIM, we would be changing frequencies, probably getting a reroute, you know, turn 30 degrees to the right for spacing. So I'm content to let the airplane, the autopilot, and the flight management system handle it at this point, because it's going to be such a busy flight, especially on some VATSIM events. Some of the new bits of flight sim hardware that are coming out these days really makes some VATSIM events a lot easier to deal with. For example, for Frankfurt Friday, you'll usually find me in an A319 using the WinWing autopilot console. That is an incredible addition. I'm able to respond to the things that ATC wants me to respond to a lot quicker than I would if I was pointing and clicking. So, you know, if you're thinking about some of those little toys, they're actually nice. I'm really impressed. The quality for WinWing. Another thing I really like about the WinWing, and I'm not sponsored by them, this honest impressions here. The other thing I like about it is its full size. It's not shrunken down for gaming or something like that. This is the real size of their autopilot, of what you would find in the airplane itself. And I really like having that, you know, a full size kind of a something or other. So that's something that's really cool. I also have the two EFIS controls on either side, and I'm really enjoying that. It really speeds up the workflow in the cockpit on the incredibly busy VATSIM event. So that's really nice. Up here at Lorne, we're coming up, and that's going to be, so it was 250 knots at Devon. We're at 250 knots about. We're also coming up on 11,000 feet at Lorne over here. So all of this is looking really nice. As we get to Lorne, we'll switch the chart over there. Another thing that I like to start doing now is, if you've got a moment to breathe, come on over here. We're done with Vienna, so I'm going to just hit those two little thumbtacks, just get them out of there. I don't usually bother with the SID, but, you know, just get rid of the departure charts and just a little bit less clutter in the iPad here. Airport. The reason that I'm coming over here is to come and take a look and see, okay, we're coming in on 9 left. We're a big old 777, so my guess is we're going to hit Zulu 6. So Zulu 6, it's a right turn. Kilo 6, there's going to be a stop at runway 9 right. And then over here, after that, it's going to be Quebec, or maybe all the way into Bravo and down here to one of the big gates down in Terminal 1. Again, starting to pack away a little bit of information, short-term information there. It's thinking, okay, right turn. Yeah, a general idea of where it is that we're going to go once we get there. Back over here to the star, and we should just be getting to Lorne. So we should be on the transition now. And there we are. So here we are on the transition. At this point, ATC may tell us to do another descent of some sort. So the altitude here for the final plunge to the runway is 4,000 feet. We're at 11,000 feet. Maybe we'll just stay at 11,000 feet here for a while. We got a couple of little lines over here. These lines, that's our missed approach. So that's already there. You see a little dashed line right here. That little dashed line is the runway line. One of the things that we could do is we could put some fixes in. So we're going to LFPG, LFPG, the airport. And now we got all sorts of cool little things that we can put in here. So let's draw some lines on the map. Let's come over here and go to this airport map and airport. And what we want is we want the opposite direction of the runway. So 9 left. The opposite direction is going to be 264 degrees. So 264 degrees / 5. That's going to draw a line out the runway, a center line, and it's going to draw a circle around that of 5 miles. Now I'm going to do /10, and then I'm going to do /25. Now let's go back to init ref. And if we look up here, oh wow, we got some interesting things up here now. Here is a 25-mile range ring, 10-mile range ring, 5-mile range ring, and as we're coming up here, we're getting a nice green center line right out the middle of the runway. So that's going to be nice too. That's a cool thing you can do, and you also can draw circles and range rings, circles, and extended center lines in an Airbus too. And that is a really great way to kind of help with a little bit of situational awareness. How close? Well, we're about 10 miles from the airport. Probably ought to start thinking about slowing down here if possible. You know, might want to make sure that we're at a decent altitude now that we're 10 miles to the airport and have to take this very, very big airplane and land it. So that is a really cool little tool to help you out. We got a couple of little dots here. This is it telling us to slow down a bit. So let's go back over to the approach. How about descend and maintain 7,000 feet? So I'm going to go, first of all, I'm going to click the center button and take control of my speed now. And we're going to go to 7,000 feet here. And let's just do flight level change. So we're going to just descend, but I'm going to hold on to 250 knots because chances are this is about the time that air traffic control on VATSIM is going to be telling us what speed they want us to fly out. And they're going to speed you up and slow you down depending upon traffic all the time. We'll keep it up to 250 knots about right now. When we start to exit, the 10-mile range ring over here, we'll slow it down even more. Coming up on 10,000 feet here. So transition was 6,000 feet, right? Fortunately, the airplane will flash a little yellow thing at us and say, hey, to remind us of that. Because there's a lot of little numbers that you're packing away there. But at 10,000 feet, I'm also going to come up here and do the seatbelt sign. Flight attendants, seats for landing. And I usually do that as we approach 10,000 feet. And then we're going to go ahead and do landing lights. Nose light. Looks like we're going to hit Bunner at about 7,000 feet. That's pretty good. So then after that, we're going to go ahead and slow down to 210 knots, which is kind of about what they're going to have you at in a VATSIM event. We're going to start seeing a couple of scenery stutters like this as it's loading in the Paris scenery. Like you just got one right there. Generally what I'll do is as soon as I see a scenery burp like that, I stop pushing buttons. If you see it burp, just stop pushing buttons, let the computer catch up, and you should be fine. Most of the time. There's 8,000 feet. And really kind of cool to be able to look outside the airplane as you're coming into. Take a second to look outside. The scenery is just getting better and better in Microsoft Flight Simulator. 2024 The quality of the scenery is better. I'm getting better performance in 2024 as well. So it really is kind of nice. If we were coming in on an Air France 777 on this approach, this is what the clouds would look like. That's about where the sun is. And that's a nice little satellite picture of what we're looking at. And now I'm going to go ahead and go from 40 miles to 20 miles. We've had a ding-dong sound, so cabin is now ready. So that's nice to know. 10,000 feet, flight attendants, seats for landing. That's letting us know cabin's ready to land. There's actual requirements that they have before you can land, that the cabin has to be in a certain, passengers have to be seated. Flight attendants have to have the galley carts put away. I think they also have to walk through the cabin and visually see every seatbelt. That's why they tell you that, if you're going to sleep for most of the flight, please leave your seatbelt on and make sure it's outside your blanket or whatever you've got over you so that they don't have to wake you up to tell you to put your seatbelt on or something like that. And there is 7,000 feet. I'm going to go ahead and do 210. If we're on VATSIM, they would be telling us when to slow down. We're not on VATSIM. And if you were and they didn't tell us what the speed is, then we can do what we want to with the speed. I generally, about 10 miles out, I'm going to get to 210 knots. If you forget flap speeds on this airplane, it's right here under. So 255 is flaps 1. Flaps 5 is 235. So I'm going to go flaps 5. And if you get a chance, head back to the cabin. If you're not busy, check out the flaps going out. They do have some nice animations. So those are the leading edge slats. And here comes some flaps. It's a little bit harder to see these, but they go very slowly. These are actually pretty big flaps, so they probably don't move that fast. Looking pretty good. ATC just called us and said, Air France 441, descend and maintain 4,000. Descend and maintain 4,000. We've had a nice gentle descent here, so nothing to worry about. I think it's probably okay for us to come over here, and I'm going to arm my speed brake. So click it, and it's now armed. There's 6,000 feet. You're going to notice it's going to, the STD standard and the altimeter are going to change color here. And that is 6,500, so it's going to change color almost immediately. Well, right at 6,000 feet. I think it does it within 200 feet on the Airbus and some other airplanes, but I think the Boeing's, it's kind of spot on. You say 6,000 feet, that's when it changes color. I like the ones in Airbus because what happens in Airbus is it flashes at you. This, it just changes color and it's easier to ignore. And that's not a good thing. 5.9. Well, so much for it being spot on there. 5.8. I must have set it. No, I didn't set it wrong. We set it 6,000 feet, didn't we? 5.7. Hey, okay, now it's changed. So altimeters to standard. There we go. And now remember we had a checklist item, so checklist, and altimeters are checked and set, and that checklist is now complete. We're 210 knots. Let's go ahead, and I should have had this set straight up now because now we're in that vectors area. So now I'm going to hit select, and yeah, you can see we're just exiting the transition here, so we'll just fly along that course right there. And there's our runway right there. So I'm going to go over to the ILS now. And let's punch this in just a little bit. And this is looking good. There is, it says 4,000 feet right there. Oh, look at this. We've got one of the pink triangle diamonds here. That shows we've got localizer. And if you look up here, you'll see DME ILS PNE 084. Come over here and you see where it says PNE right here. It's the fastest way to make sure that you're on your airplane is on the correct ILS. And that is an important safety tip, especially at big old airports like de Gaulle, where there's a bunch of different runways. So there's 4,000 feet. At this point, ATC might say, Air France 441, speed 180 knots, turn right, heading 100. So there's 180. I guess it would have been 180 for south for a 90-degree turn. See what I get for trying to do math in my head while yapping on the internet? So yeah, basically I was going to set up for, yeah, I did the wrong number. And a nice little 90-degree turn to make it parallel. There's 180 knots. And flaps 15 at 215. I think it's time for another click of the flaps button. Landing checklist. We'll pop that up. The landing checklist is automatic. So speed brakes are armed. That's good news. So we're on a nice little 10-mile. There's the 5-mile range ring, the 10-mile range ring, the 25-mile range ring, the green dashed line straight out. That's our runway center line. So that kind of helps us, decide, figure out where we are in comparison with the runway, especially if it's really, really dark outside and you can't see the airport. Yeah, I can't see anything there. And if ATC's got you rocking around and everything. We just had a ding-dong. What's that? It's comms. So we'll look at comms. That might be a new ATIS. New message. Information whiskey. Altimeter is now 1018. That is a change. Altimeter has changed. Winds are 3606. That's the same, about 12 degrees. So that's good too. Let's go back to the checklist page. And let's go ahead and get ready to make a turn. So we're about 5 miles. Let's go ahead and make a little turn here. How about 100? Yeah, that's probably too much. Maybe 120. Because I want to kind of put us in right over there. We've got 2 little diamonds right now. So we've got glide slope and localizer. There's the runway. I'm going to go last click to 10 miles, and I'm going to come over here, and we're going to hit the approach button. Now, usually, sometimes ATC is going to say right turn to a heading of 120 degrees and join the localizer. That does not mean that you're cleared for the descent, so you'd hit the localizer button instead. The approach button will capture and the localizer and descend you with glide slope. 2 important safety tips on that one. You don't want to descend any faster. And this is also giving you DME, distance measuring equipment, distance to the runway. We're 14 miles from the runway. Paris is looking pretty good this evening. And if you look over there, I see an airport. There are some buildings starting to show up. And there is the Eiffel Tower. How about that? There's the Eiffel Tower over there. There's some more downtown buildings showing up there. Airplane is now grabbing the localizer. Glide slope is coming down, but we haven't started our descent. And generally, I will stay, unless ATC tells me otherwise, 180 knots until 5 miles DME. And then you can slow down. That's especially if you're going to continue with a lot of approaches. How about landing gear? That's an important thing. Wheels, right? Yeah, we're about 10 miles from the runway. That's generally when I'm going to do landing gear, is about 10 miles. Hey, we just started our descent, so we got glide slope too. If you're like me and you kind of move around in your chair a lot and you're trying to be comfy, now's a good time to do what we over on Twitch call the posture check and stuff like that. And that's actually something from gaming, but in flight simming, posture check means sit up straight. If you got rudder pedals, gently place your feet on the rudder pedals. Get the microphone out of the way. Make sure that you can reach both your throttles and your side stick. And we are 9 miles from the runway. If you get a chance, just go outside, have a look and see. Especially if you're coming into something like Paris, it's like, oh my gosh, there's the Eiffel Tower over there. There's the river. There is a football stadium over there. The football stadiums in Europe in flight sim look really cool at night. And I'm going to start looking more outside the airplane now and see the runway. And we're on the ILS. I'm going to go to airports, pop this in, and I'm going to go and zoom this in as tight as, what looks good. So at the end of the runway, we're going to try for Zulu 6, to Kilo 6, to Quebec 2, to Bravo. Coming up on 5 miles from the end of the runway, notice how all of a sudden we got busy again. Over here, approach ref, it says 129, let's go 130. So 135 for our landing. 135, that looks good. And we can roll out a little more flap here. And probably some more flaps. And probably even more flaps. Speed is good. Auto brakes, speed brakes. Checklist should be complete when flaps are at 30. And the flaps are still going out. Now checklist is complete. How about that? So go back to engines, come up over here. I see the runway. Airplane is now nicely established on the ILS. Real pilots, they've taken it probably off, the autopilot. Especially at this point, unless it's a Category 3 landing and the weather really is bad. But I usually leave it on until I'm 100% ready to take control, and that's going to be about the 5-mile range ring. And I'm going to go ahead and do autopilot. Autopilot's off. I'm going to move my physical throttles. I'm going to move them out of that mid-range detent. And usually about now I do autopilot off and then auto throttle off. And I have a button for that. It's going to alert me. We're a touch high. My thrust reversers, I've found that with the PMDG airplanes, the thrust reversers are best in the hold mode. That means if you've got a button on your throttles that you can hold them. I got a little high while yapping here. If you've got something that you can hold them, that seems to work for me as opposed to toggle. You can either toggle or you can hold. I'm coming in a little bit high today.
Approaching minimums. Minimums.
Landing.
Sink rate.
Real pilots are not going to do a dive for the runway. I also spotted that. The windsock as we're coming in. Reversers engaged. Reversers off. Speed brakes down. Hand is now on the tiller. And the chart moved. It does that. Zulu 6, I think that's what we wanted. As we're coming off the runway, landing lights, strobes. And then this was going to be our hold short point for this runway over here. Is that the one that we wanted? Hey, look at that. That's the one we wanted. So at this point, chances are the tower would tell us to hold short of runway 09 right. And usually you're going to get a hold short like that for a second. So this is when you can start to clean up a few things. So we've got the lights off. The strobes are off. We can come down here and move our flaps up. I've already, I flicked the speed brakes lever and that put them down. And you can see our flaps are going to come on up there. Leading edge slats are coming up. Cleaning up the airplane for taxi. I'm going to turn on my logo light because it's starting to get dark. ATC said go ahead and taxi. So let's go ahead and add some engines. And I usually will add my engines, you know, I'll kick them forward fairly. You know, get the airplane running, because if it's on VATSIM, you're going to want to move quickly. Looking over here, oh, I hate it. It always moves it. So we're going to cross one runway, go to a hold pad, and then a left turn. This, I believe, is a big de-icing and staging area. So we don't want Quebec, we want Bravo. We don't really have a good payware or freeware or airport for Paris de Gaulle, but there are some problems with the default scenery. The default isn't awful. The problem with the default scenery is there are some very, very big bumps in all of this. So over at flightsim.to, you can go and you can get a nice scenery. It's called a scenery fix. And that's gonna clean up a lot of those little problems. And so now we're going to be over here on the Bravo taxiway. Now, one of the things I'd really, really like is to be able to come over here and punch this all the way in and use this moving map. The problem is sometimes it's not working as good as it is today. Today it's working great. Wish it would work like that more. As we get a little bit closer to the gate, we're going to decide, do we want the APU up and running, or will we wait for them to put the airplane on ground power? I believe in Europe, the rule is APU stays off until 10 minutes prior to push and start to save, you know, pollution, noise, and fuel. So we're coming across there. If you're flying into VATSIM events like this and you have time, go to a real-world flight tracker like Flight Radar 24, or there's another one that I usually go to and can't remember. Go to Flight Radar 24 and see where a real flight from Zurich might be parking. Because usually when you get first kicked over to ground on a VATSIM event, they're going to usually say, Air France 441, cross 9 right at Quebec, say parking. And I, of course, because I'm into silly jokes and stuff like that, I'm going to say something along the lines like, parking, because I think it's funny, but controllers don't. Anyway, they mean, you know, would you please tell us where you want to park? Why don't we go over here? I've always gone to some of these other gates. Let's go around over here and go this way. I've never been on this side. So, but if you've taken the time to go and look up a parking gate, particularly if it's one that affects your, you know, that is your flight. So ours was Zurich to Paris. That's kind of a cool thing to do. I'm also noticing some of the maps are starting to show parking gates that have 3 jetways for A380s now, which is kind of cool. And then usually, because it's kind of hard to see, I'll usually go outside the airplane and kind of come over here. And you can see that this gate is a little bit messed up here. I think that this might be a gate that they're trying to build for an A380. I'm not sure. But we'll just go ahead and stop here. Parking brakes are going to go on. Now from here, we would also, as we were coming in, we would want to turn off the nose light, the taxi light, so we don't blind the ground crew. We're done here. So we're at gate U17, go to ground operations. I want to set some chocks in place. I want to request ground power. And then once we have ground power and I see that, I'm going to pop that in. There's ground power. And with that, we can come down and do engine number 1. Engine number 2. We can come over here and stop squawking. Ground power's got us over there. Let's also go ahead and put ground power number 2 on. Ground power number 2 is on. And do we have engines? We'll request a jetway. I don't see... Yeah, we can't put in the air conditioner until the engines spool down. So we'll just stay without air conditioning for a few minutes. Beacon can go off. We'll leave the logo light on. Seatbelts can go off too. And those are all looking pretty good. And ground power is still good. Engines are still spinning down a bit. Hey, look at that. Now we can request an air conditioning unit. And by now, if we did get a jetway, we got a jetway in place. So now we can go and hit door management, disarm your doors, then open them. That way you don't blow the escape slides. And from here, we'll also come and open up the cargo. Oh, and you can see there is the air conditioning unit down there. So that's pumping in all cool or warm air, depending upon the season. And we made it. Nobody was hurt. Nobody was arrested. What a great flight. And again, this is such an amazing airplane. Having an absolute blast with this airplane. It is so much fun. There's an awful lot more to learn than what it was that I was just doing with the airplane. But these are the buttons that work so that I could take this airplane and get through a VATSIM flight and not really humiliate myself, but maybe also even do a decent flight. I hope that this helps you out a little bit. If you've just discovered the Spy Flight, come on and fly with us live. We're flying right now Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. No, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And Monday. We changed it that way. So Thursdays through Monday. Our departure time is always 1900 Zulu on Twitch and also right here on YouTube. Our flights are all on VATSIM. So if you're flying an X-plane or P3D, you'll be able to fly with us on those particular flights as well. I sure hope that you enjoyed this. Thank you for being here. If there's something that you saw that I did not do right, if there's something you saw that, oh no, you would never do it that way, please put it in the comments. I absolutely appreciate that. I'm also new here on YouTube, so all of those things that they say about liking and subscribing, please, if you feel like it. Thank you for flying with me. I hope you are doing well. As I always like to say at the end of the live spy flight, please stay healthy, stay safe. We'll see you in the friendly sim skies. Cheers.